difficult at first, but I think it's so enlightening as to certain differences and very notorious contrasts between English. Hello, Sophie. Good morning, Sophie Stechina. How are you? I think that this theory on the typology, on this typology of languages, satellite frame languages versus verb frame languages, and the fact that precisely your mother tongue is Spanish and you you're going to translate mainly from Spanish, from English into Spanish. The topic comes in and very usefully, let's say. It's really relevant, okay? And I think that even though we are going to concentrate only on motion events and trajectories, right, and all that stuff, it helps a lot as to this issue of manner verbs, which you studied in language, in language 2, and I think in all the languages, but I think that it's mainly in language 4, when you study ways of looking, ways of walking, ways of, which other ways? Of grabbing, of holding. Well, that is something that has to do, that is very much connected to the typology of English and Germanic languages, because the same happens in German, in Dutch, in Danish, right? That verbs have this capacity of conflating two types of meanings. One main meaning or basic meaning, we are going to be concentrating on motion, but it could be holding, it could be, I don't know, smiling, whatever, and then manner, which is not typical of Romance languages, which at the same time does not mean that it's non-existent in Romance languages. We do have lots of verbs in Spanish that conflate motion and manner as well, but not so many, right? So I think that in my presentation, I ask you to think about or try and look out for the equivalent of wade, to wade. So if you have studied that in language 4, Camila, who has just passed her exam, what's the meaning of to wade in English? As a way of walking, W-A-D-E.
To walk in the water with difficulty.
Exactly, excellent. To walk in the water. And what about the depth of the water?
I think that more or less, like
not so deep. Not so deep. It would be at knee level or maybe less than that, 10, 20 centimeters, right? Well, in Spanish, there is a verb which we seldom use that means that. Who knows which verb I'm speaking about?
Vadear.
Vadear. Vadear un río significa ir caminando por el agua, ¿sí? Por el agua, por la orilla, es algo que hacemos en las sierras de Córdoba, lo hacemos bastante, aunque la idea de vadear un río es como más un río más llano, cuyo cauce es más llano y se puede caminar mejor. Los ríos de Córdoba tenemos ahí una mezcla, right? We would be wading and stumbling at the same time, right? But otherwise, we simply, what is it that we would simply say? Y fuimos por el río, qué sé yo, no fuimos el fin de semana a Cuesta Blanca y caminamos por el río hasta una playita divina. Y decimos caminamos, y a pesar de que caminar también denota, when el verbo caminar en español and walk in English, two meanings conflate, because it is motion and it is manner. The thing is that since we always walk, there comes a moment when we think, okay, that's not manner. Yes, but you can run, you can walk, right? You can creep. But if we simply said in Spanish, fuimos por el río hasta una playita divina, ¿sí? Todos vamos, no tiene nada de raro esa expresión, pero si dijéramos algo como fuimos a los tumbos por las piedritas, mojándonos hasta la rodilla, no agregamos la manera, no la resaltamos de esa manera, ni la expresamos en muchos casos. Y ya van a ver cuando lean el artículo de Sloving, que habla más de las descripciones de los movimientos en textos narrativos, y él está muy lindo el artículo, es menos científico si se quiere y más sencillo que leer el de Talmy, que dicho sea de paso, está resumido para ustedes, no es el original. Está cortado y fue retipeado por un grupo de 6 ayudantes, alumnos y alumnas, que se trabajaron todo, porque el artículo original no lo conseguíamos, era muy largo y tenía partes borrosas, así que nosotros hicimos todas las selecciones y los chicos tipearon todo, así que eso que tienen en el handbook es gracias a esos alumnos, así como Sofi, como Carla, Miretti y como Montserrat, que ahora no está, bueno, trabajaron para ustedes. La verdad que el trabajo de los ayudantes alumnos es siempre muy silencioso, pero muy de destacar, por eso lo digo, porque fueron ellos quienes retipiaron ese artículo tan difícil y donde, bueno, si uno comete un error. Bueno, pero volviendo a este tema, a Sloving, cuando ustedes lean Sloving, Two Ways of Traveling, les va a ser mucho más fácil comprenderlo después de haber leído Talmy, pero a lo que voy es que él se concentra a cómo son las descripciones de los, what he calls journeys, right? Because it's not just one, oh, now the train, now I have not only the train, but they are building a house next door. So this is murder. Well, what Sloving explains is that Romance languages like Spanish very often omit manner altogether, right? And that doesn't mean that our language is less perfect than any other language. That is something you know from linguistics. No language is neither more complex, nor more simple, nor better, no, okay? They are different. But dividing or classifying languages into typologies is very useful, and it will help you understand or feel less guilty if you want, if you happen to enter the field of literary translation, right? Or even if you translate subtitles for films, movies, TV series, not to feel bad if you don't foreground manner, right? And if someone says, and they waited along the river until a nice, I don't know, small spot, you would simply say, y fueron para el río hasta un lugar muy lindo, y está perfecto. Y no sentir que debería haber dicho, fueron por el agua, fueron... No estaría mal decir vadearon el río, no estaría mal, pero también depende del contexto, porque vadear es bastante formal. Entonces, ¿cuál es el objetivo de estudiar o en esta unidad de hacerles comparar tipológicamente el inglés y el español desde este punto de vista? Que ustedes tengan un fundamento teórico para que defiendan sus traducciones si son más peladas, por decirlo de alguna manera, en algunas partes de los textos, porque eso se va a compensar de otra forma. O sea, usaré verbos que no denotan manera y no voy a destacar la manera, pero luego quizás elegiré un sustantivo que es más literario, más evocativo o lo que fuera, más figurativo, para crear para darle a la narración el impacto, ¿no es cierto?, o el efecto que tuvo quizás el autor, especialmente cuando es literario, ¿sí? ¿Me van siguiendo? O sea que ese es el objetivo final. Entre medio los vamos a volver locos, perdón, locos y locas, con todos los análisis que van a tener que hacer ustedes. Sí, ya te escucho, María Gracia. Y que bueno, que es como siempre, ¿no es cierto? Como yo siempre les digo, para el parcial estudié para 10 o estudié 100 y me acuerdo 90 y en el final me acuerdo 85 y el año que viene me acuerdo 70 y para toda la vida me voy a acordar 50 de lo que estudié hoy. Cuando tengan 30, 40, me voy a acordar 50, bueno, pero es mucho 50, ¿sí? Pero para el parcial no, porque se sacan un 3, ¿sí? Bien, ¿qué me quería preguntar María Gracia?
Hola, profe, ¿qué tal? Mira, quería consultar si había entendido bien el artículo de Slovin. Pues la verdad me sorprendió un poco porque si bien entendí, decía que en inglés se describen más las acciones y que en español eso se compensa con descripción vendría a ser los surroundings.
Sí.
Puede ser que sea así, pues yo pensé que era al revés.
No, está bien. Te contesto ahora, si bien lo vamos a ver bien la clase que viene, la próxima semana, vamos a tratar bien el artículo de Slovin, pero entendiste perfectamente bien. Es decir, el ejemplo que estoy dando del río. Si yo digo que fuimos a Cuesta Blanca y fuimos por el río hasta una playita divina, ¿sí? Que estaba entre las montañas o lo que fuera, esa descripción que yo doy me hace imaginar cómo caminamos, ¿sí? No hace falta que yo te explique a vos que en un río de Córdoba, de las sierras, cuando vos caminás, o te tenés que poner las hojotas, o te resbalás, o te duele, o vas caminando, de repente está abajo, después está más hondo, entonces te tropezás.
En ese caso también funcionan los adverbios, ¿o no? Para no describir tanto los surroundings, usar adverbios.
Exacto, usar adverbios o a veces nada, ¿eh? A veces nada, o sea, tampoco estoy diciendo que va a estar completamente pelada la descripción, ¿no es cierto? Más si es un texto literario, si es un cuento, etcétera. Pero realmente cuando uno, y eso es lo que tiene de lindo el artículo de Slovin, que él pone excerpts, que compara textos. Por ejemplo, creo que uno de los que incluye es uno de, no sé si es To the Lighthouse, es uno de Virginia Woolf, y lo compara con otro, no me acuerdo si es de Gabriel García Márquez, digamos, no elige textos traducidos, elige textos en su idioma original, en cada idioma original, para mostrar cómo se destaca la manera, el movimiento, cómo se describe el movimiento, porque Slovin habla de journeys, entonces ahí entra otro tema más. Pero ahora, antes de, o sea, ¿entendiste bien? La semana que viene nos vamos a concentrar en eso, y ahora me gustaría entrar en la teoría base de lexicalization patterns by Leonard Talmy, okay? So, maybe what we could do is I have the same PowerPoint I used for my recorded presentation. I don't know if there are any questions in particular. Otherwise, Sophie could share the screen and I could point out certain aspects. Do you agree? Or is there anybody else like Maria Gracia who would like to ask something in particular before I start? Okay, so we'll go over some of the slides and then we'll try and do the final exercise all together, right? Okay, Sophie, so if you can share the screen, we'll go to the brief view on cognitive linguistics. I think it's this there. Okay, excellent. Well, during the first part of the year, during the first semester, we also studied language typologies, but we concentrated on pro-drop and non-pro-drop languages. And our, let's say, approach was the Chomskyan approach, right? That is an approach that claims, one of the claims is that language is a modular system in our brains, remember? And that you can really, let's say, tell apart this modular system in your brain that is used for language and other parts of your brain, and that is not connected to cognition, that it is innate. He spoke about an innate grammar, right? Now, he was a structuralist. He is or was a structuralist. Now, cognitive linguistics is another area of linguistics, right? An approach that is different, that really differs from the structuralist approach. And as you can see in the presentation, it says that cognitive linguistics was born as a reaction against traditional grammar, which is more like these other approaches, and formal approaches to languages like Chomsky's generative grammar. So we are having a very, very quick overview, a trailer, as I said, of a cognitive approach. I know you study cognitive approaches in linguistics, don't you? Also, yes. So remember that these, you are undergraduate students, son alumnos de grado. Entonces todo lo que les damos nosotros es un pequeño pantallazo de distintas teorías y asignaturas que luego los ayudarán a ustedes a decidir qué especialidad van a querer seguir. Pero esto no quiere decir que una teoría o un enfoque es mejor que el otro, son distintos y a veces son mejores según el tema. Okay, good. So, cognitive linguistics does not consider language as a modular system, as I was saying, in our brains, but rather claims that language and cognition are embodied. So, together, cognition, your experience in the world, right? So, we learn through experience. That is to say, in our linguistic and conceptual categories are grounded, our linguistic and conceptual categories are grounded in physical, social, and cultural experience. That is something you studied, and I'm sure you have done it very well and very deeply in linguistics, don't you? For example, you must have studied about Eskimos and the fact that they have many words for snow, because they know in their experience there are different types of snow. For us, it's only one type of snow once a year at most. Okay, let's move on, Sophie. Let's see, Juan Cruz, can you read this slide? Thank you.
Yes, of course. Cognitive linguistics. CEL rejects points of widespread agreement, such as language is an innate and autonomous cognitive faculty. To know a language is to know its grammar. Form is the main focus of linguistic analysis rather than meaning.
So this is what cognitive linguistics rejects. So we are in a way rejecting what we studied when we studied pro-drop and non-pro-drop languages, okay? But it's a different approach. Yes, good, thank you. Let's move on, Sophie. Okay, so we go to the basis of this theory, the difference between satellite verb frame language, satellite frame languages, verb frame languages, and satellite versus verb frame languages. Okay, good. So, one of the most important things for you to know, and I would move on, Sophie, and up to, go on. No, one more. Move on. Okay, yeah, we can stop here. This is an explanation of how this linguist, who is not the only one who studied in this area, started his research, right? So what was the object or the objective, the main aim of his research study? Antonella, can you read, please?
Yes. Main aim of this study: to explore systematic relations between meaning and surface expression, to explore cases that constitute a pervasive pattern and describe their features within a language and across languages to decide if they are an instance of a universal or a typology.
Excellent. So all the time, what is it that we are going to be doing? We are going to be thinking of semantic entities, that is to say, a meaning, like motion, like manner, and then we are going to try and see which is the surface entity, which is the word that represents that meaning in each language. This is what he did, and of course, he not only compared English and Spanish, but many languages, okay? And what he concentrated on, or what is very important for us to bear in mind, is that for us to say that a language belongs in one typology or in another, there should be a pattern that is pervasive. Pervasive means that repeats itself or that abounds in the language, like the expression of manner in English, verbs, right? Which might be the case in Spanish, but at a real, very, very low level, because as Pinker said, all typologies, who finishes the sentence? All typologies?
Leak.
So we cannot say it's 100% like that, okay? Good. Let's move on. Let's move on. There, good. Stop there, Sophie, stop there. Excellent. So this is very important, that you make a very clear distinction between a semantic entity, a meaning, and the surface entity. That is important for your analysis, that you don't confuse a root verb, right, with motion. Of course, a verb denotes motion, but they are two different things. Then we have the semantic entity of path, the meaning of path. A synonym of path could be trajectory. What surface entities, what lexical items encode path in Spanish? In Spanish.
The verb, sometimes.
It could be the verb, very good, because verbs very often conflate motion when we're speaking about movement, motion and path. So we use the verb conflate when two meanings co-occur in one lexical item. Good. Path could be expressed in a verb in Spanish. Where else? In Spanish.
Adverbials of place.
Such as, give me an example and I'll tell you.
Caminó hacia tal lado, hacia la casa.
Okay, where is path denoted there? In which word?
En
Path.
Asia, puede ser.
The trajectory, right. So in prepositions. No, it's not the whole adverbial, because then you have the ground, la casa, which is the goal, where you go, okay? So in Spanish, it could be expressed in the verb as, I don't remember the name of the student who said that, in a verb or in a preposition. What about English?
It is expressed in satellites, in some verbs of Latin origin, like enter, ascend, descend.
Okay. So it can be expressed in verbs, because in English because all typologies leak, there are some verbs of Latin origin, as Camila is saying, for example, enter a place. And no wonder, pay attention to this example. I'm sure that many of you, up to not so long ago, made the following mistake. Enter to the house. Have you ever made that mistake? And it's enter the house. But why? I don't need a satellite to encode path because the verb enter already encodes motion and path. So it's enter the house, right? I don't need that in English in that case, in that verb. Then there are other verbs, and something funny happens that are not of Latin origin, but that are cause confusion because students, unconsciously, students of English want to express the path in a satellite. And those verbs are the verbs rise or raise. Well, they are different verbs, you know, the intransitive and the transitive one. But the verb rise, let's say the sun rises, the intransitive. You needn't say rise up. Or if it's the transitive verb raise up your hand. You needn't. You mustn't. I mean, it's raise your hands. Raise encodes motion and path. And the path is upwards. If you raise your hand, this is the only possibility. Upwards, not downwards. And unconsciously, students of English tend to make that mistake. I don't know if you have ever noticed that. And so this is like a problem, if you want, of instruction. In the case of enter, is because, if you want, of language interference. And in the other case, it could be because of instruction. Yes, Camila.
Yes, I was wondering if the verb approach encodes path too, as in she approached me to ask me a question.
Approach is a typical verb. An approach, it has inherent directionality, and it means towards whatever the ground you're mentioning. So if you say, she approached me, you know what the direction is. She approached the house, you know what the direction is, right? So it has inherent directionality, and therefore it encodes also path, right? So in English, path can be encoded in the verb. That's not very frequent, but it happens. In a satellite, which is an adverbial particle, and that, as the definition goes, exists in sister relationship with the verb. So satellites are to the root verb what the moon is to the earth. That's why they are called satellites. So can the moon exist without the earth? No. So it moves around I'm right, it moves around the earth, yes. It depends on the earth, it's the satellite to the earth. So satellites only exist in English, and they are adverbial particles that, for us, if you were not experts of the language, because you already are experts, you would simply look at them and think they are prepositions, right? That's the first thing one might think, it's a preposition. But as you have seen, not all of them are prepositions. So we have what we call adverbial particles that exist in sister relationship with the verb, depend on the verb, and prepositions that, if you, and these are my words, not Talmis, but I think I can paraphrase him in this respect, that prepositions exist in relationship, in direct relationship to a noun. And that you know from first year. Prepositions always have a complement or an object, which is always a nominal. Do you agree? Prepositions cannot exist in the air. Okay, so let's have a look. Yes, Sophie, now just click so that we can see the surface entities. Well, adpositions is because since Talmi studied many languages, we only know languages, or at least myself, that have prepositions before the nouns. But there are other languages that have postpositions after the nouns, and some other languages have impositions. Están al medio de la palabra, del sustantivo adelante, atrás. No es el caso ni de inglés ni de español, pero por eso se habla de adposiciones, porque no todas son preposiciones, ¿sí? En nuestro caso, lo son. Okay, now, why is it that in the domain, why do you think that in this presentation, I have used red, color red, for motion, path, figure, and ground, but I have used a different color for manner and cause? Any hint?
Because the red entities are compulsory.
Excellent. They are always present in a motion event. Now that we are analyzing motion events from the point of view of the lexicalization patterns theory, I go back to the metaphor of glasses that I always use with you, my undergraduate dear students. So I can look at a sentence wearing these glasses and I say something like, I don't know, the thief, what could it be? The thief dived into the river or something like that. And if I'm wearing these glasses and I use traditional grammar, I would simply see a subject, the thief, a predicate, and then dived is a verb, and is an intransitive verb, and into the river or whatever is the adverbial realized by means of a prepositional phrase, blah, 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 right? But if I change my glasses, and these are the glasses for the lexicalization patterns approach, I no longer see a simple sentence, but I see a motion event. I no longer speak of a subject, but I speak of a figure. Then I decide, I analyze the figure, and depending on whether the figure moves by itself or is moved by somebody or something else, or moves because of nature, I am going to classify that proposition, which can also be called a proposition, as agentive, self-agentive, non-agentive. Then I'm going to speak about dive as the root verb, which in this case conflates motion, right? And path is expressed in the satellite, okay? Because in general, you dive, when you dive in the water, you know it's down. We could think of, we could say that it has inherent directionality, right? Because if you dive, it cannot be up. Do you agree? Then we are going to be seeing all the different cases. But what I want to show you is that it's the same type of thing you've been doing, but from a different angle. So meta-language, as always, is very important. Well, let's move on and have a look at the characteristics of satellites, because satellites are non-existent in Spanish. Although Leonard Talmy says that there are some Romance languages in which we can speak about certain type of satellites. And in my own thesis dissertation, which I did on this topic, but what I did was I wanted to see whether systemic functional linguistics, which also analyzes motion events and all that, contributed something to the lexicalization patterns theory of Talmis, which was the first one. And so it does contribute something there. They go more in detail. And one of the things discovered, if you want, humbly discovered, is that in Spanish, y eso es un tema que vamos a ver pronto, muchas veces el pronombre se de los verbos pronominales actúa como una especie de satélite. Después van a ver por qué. Cuando uno dice, por ejemplo, algo como se salió la manija de la puerta, o se salió el picaporte, que decimos se salió, y no podemos decir salió el picaporte, porque salió a dónde, ese se es como una especie de satélite que existe con el verbo, no depende del sustantivo, depende del verbo, y que te está hablando ya sea de dirección o de otro tipo de significados como los aspectuales que más adelante vamos a ver. Y en inglés, por lo general, todos esos Cs se traducen by means of the satellite off, with double F. It came off. And it has this. So, we could speak about satellites in Spanish, but this is very, very subtle. And so for our purpose, and speaking about motion events and trajectory, in a minute, Sophie, we are not going to say that. We are going, what you have to say, or what is more general, is not that I'm obliging you to say something, of course. If you have grounds, you can prove them and say whatever you want. But in most of the cases, we realize that there are no satellites in Spanish, but only in English. Yes, Sofía.
Profe, justo tenía una duda respecto a eso. Estábamos hablando hace un rato de un ejemplo que dijo un compañero de caminó hacia la casa. En ese caso, hacia no es un satélite entonces.
No, es una preposición.
Ok, listo. Ok, gracias.
Por eso yo les pregunté cuáles eran los elementos lingüísticos o the surface elements, los elementos superficiales que en español realizan la trayectoria o denotan trayectoria. Y son, o está en el verbo, o está en el verbo y también en una preposición, pero nunca en un satélite en español. En cambio en inglés, y creo que no lo alcanzamos a decir, path may be encoded in the satellite and be further elaborated in a preposition. Like the example somewhere here, she ran out of the house. She ran out of the house. I don't know if, let me see if I find the slide, if it comes afterwards or...
Profe, perdón, entonces en ese caso de caminó hacia la casa, podríamos decir que, o sea, typology doesn't leak, but it is further elaborated in the preposition, or with the preposition.
¿In Spanish?
Sí.
No necesitas decir further elaborated, porque si vos en español, en el caso de caminar, no es como entrar y salir. The verb caminar in Spanish encodes motion and manner, like in English, but you don't know in which direction. It's not like salí. Si yo digo salí de acá, vos ya sabés para qué lado te tenés que ir. Y si digo entrar, también sabes para qué lado. Y si digo subí, también sabes. A veces hace falta aclarar, muchos de ustedes que viven en departamentos, los chicos, los estudiantes, pueden decir subí al tercero y no al primero, ¿sí? Pero en general, con decir subir, bajar es suficiente. En cambio, si yo digo caminar, bueno, depende del contexto, quizás necesito aclarar que es a la derecha, a la izquierda, para atrás eventualmente, que no sería lo muy normal. ¿Está claro eso, Sofi?
Sí, profe, gracias.
De nada, vamos a ver muchos ejemplos de cualquier manera. Sofía, China, adelántate, después volvemos a adelántate unos 3 slides, y ahí está explicado, con tanto medio torcida la flecha. ¡Ay, vuelve! Esa era la anterior. Ahí, perfecto. So, the satellites. A satellite, it's not a grammatical category in itself, but a new kind of grammatical relation, and it is a new coinage in linguistic literature. So, it's a new word, it's a term, a category that was invented, that was coined by Leonard Talmy. Okay, satellites. Satellites in English are mainly involved in the expression of path. Mainly, not always. Ahí presten atención porque hay casos donde no. Generally, path is expressed fully, and this is what I wanted to explain about English, the combination of a satellite and a preposition. So if I say, I ran out of the house, it would be ungrammatical to say, I ran out the house, wouldn't it? I cannot say, I ran out the house. Why not? Why is it that I cannot say, I ran out the house? Because out is a satellite that exists in sister relationship with the verb root. And together they form the what? A ver, todo lo que rindieron en Julio, seguro que se acuerdan. Run out, they form
Verb complex.
Verb complex.
That's a verb complex. We speak of verb complexes only in English, not in Spanish, because in Spanish there are no satellites. Vamos bien hasta ahí, so far so good? So this is a verb complex, this is the root verb, and this is the satellite. Because it is a satellite, and it exists, and it depends on the verb, it cannot introduce, it cannot contain a ground nominal. What is a ground nominal? A noun phrase. If I wear these glasses, I say that the house is a noun phrase, object of the preposition of. But if I wear these glasses and I apply the lexicalization approach, I say that the house is the ground and is the ground source, because it's the origin, and that it is contained or it's introduced by the preposition of. The preposition of contains the ground nominal. Now, because of is a preposition, and it always exists together with a noun or noun phrase, it would be ungrammatical to say what? You tell me. I ran out of.
I ran out the house.
I ran out the house. It's ungrammatical because out is a satellite. And I ran out of is also ungrammatical because I need a noun. I cannot say, and I ran out of. No, out of what? Out of where? Right? But you could say, I heard the bullets and I ran out. That is perfect, isn't it? Because the satellite belongs in the verb complex. The moment I introduce a preposition, I need a ground nominal. However, and now we go back, pobre Sofía no puede distraerse ni un segundo en esta clase. Otra más para atrás, Sofía. Oh, no, o es esta la que habla de los SAT preps. A ver, vuelve. ¿Cuál hablaba de los SAT preps? Esta. Bien. Entonces tenemos in English. A ver, Camila. Yes.
I was going to ask regarding the previous example, I ran out of the house. What happens with inside? I run inside the house. We do not need the of, the preposition.
If you say I ran inside the house, what do you mean?
That you entered running.
It's because it gives the idea that you were running inside the house, not outside the house. So during the pandemic, when we couldn't go out, so there's not a trajectory that implies two things. It's where you did that. So
okay.
During the lockdown, I ran inside my garden, for example, meaning there, right? So it would be different. Well, but I want you to understand the difference between a satellite and a preposition, and then a sat prep. So I have just explained the difference between a satellite and a preposition in English. Is that clear? Was it clear? ¿Lo entendieron? Bueno. Now I'm going to try and explain what a sat prep is, which is like a double agent, right? Luciano, can you read the examples, please? I'm going to have my sorry.
Yes. I saw him, but he walked past me.
Read
Will
as
swim.
if it were two sentences, please.
Okay. I saw him, but he walked past. I saw him, but he walked past me.
Good. Stop there.
We'll swim across.
Stop there.
Okay.
So, if I said I saw him, but he walked past me, what would be, what type of semantic entity is me denoting or expressing? Piensen bien. Semantic entity, and this is a motion event.
Is
The
it ground?
Ground nominal.
It is a noun, yes, that's the surface entity, but which is the semantic entity? It's a ground. Very good. A ground nominal. It is nominal because it is an object pronoun, and object pronouns have nominal function, right? In this case, only in object position. Now, why is it the ground? Because what's the meaning of I saw him, but he walked past me? Why is me the ground?
Because me is the reference of the movement.
Object, the reference object of the movement. Esta soy yo. Esta la vieron, ¿me la ven? ¿Se ve? Bueno, esta soy yo. And this guy, my boyfriend, here, comes walking and walks past me. Right? Past me. So this is the ground with respect to which what moves? The what? What moves with respect?
The figure.
The figure.
The figure. And who is the figure here?
The person walking?
Yeah, in this sentence, he.
Your ex.
Yeah, the he, the ex, whatever. Right? So if it were traditional grammar, okay, past me, he walked past me is an adverbial of place, me is the object of the preposition, cha-cha. Pero no estamos haciendo traditional grammar, entonces me pongo estos. Y miro en función de si veo una figure, si veo ground, ¿sí? Entonces yo no hablo más de un object, hablo de ground porque estoy con otro approach, ¿sí? Un poco infantil como le explico, pero es porque quiero que lo entiendan, ¿sí? Así no lo van a explicar en sus finales y parciales, por Dios. Okay, good. So, me is the ground nominal, and past is a preposition that contains the ground nominal, or a satellite that works in relation to the motion verb. It's both.
A satellite.
It's both.
It's
a
that in a
satellite.
preposition.
Why? Which is the proof? How can I prove that? Well, by deleting the ground nominal. If it's grammatical, then it was a sat prep. So in the previous example, I ran out of the house. It's clear that out is a satellite, only a satellite, because I cannot say I ran out the house. Then it's clear that of is a preposition, only a preposition, because I cannot say I ran out of. I need the house. In the case of past, I can say I saw him, but he walked past. Perfect. Satellite. Or I can say I saw him, but he walked past me. And I express the ground nominal. So that means that this is a sat prep. On many occasions, you will find instances of sat preps. In the presentation and in our handbook and everywhere, we mention some words that are always prepositions and others that are always satellites. Like, for example, well, I have already spoken about of. The other one that is always a preposition is from. It can never be, she ran from, she came from. Can you say, and she came from? Can you say that? No, it requires the ground nominal, right? And then you have others like apart, something broke apart. Of course, in that case, the meaning denoted by the satellite is not exactly one of a trajectory, and I take advantage of that example to analyze other path satellites not usually considered as such. Why not usually considered as such? Because they denote path, but other meanings, right? Or other meanings, and the other characteristic they have is that they are not particles, they are not adverbial particles. Entonces, muchas de las adverbial particles que ustedes estudian, como los phrasal verbs, que también muchas veces los odian, después los vuelven a amar, pero en el interín los odian. ¿Por qué? Porque son muy tipológicos, están muy en la esencia de las lenguas germánicas. O sea, si nosotros tenemos phrasal verbs in English, no saben lo que es el danés. Hace 2 años tuvimos unas alumnas danesas que nos dieron una clase de lexicalization patterns en sus lenguas y era para morirse la cantidad de satellites que tenían, no solo uno, varios, todos alrededor de un verbo, bien típico de las lenguas germánicas, lo que los hace tan difíciles para nosotros. Entonces, son significados, como siempre decimos, los significados siempre se van a poder transmitir, si no, ¿para qué estudian traducción? Ahora, el tema está en la surface entity. Y conocer a mi lengua madre, a la cual por lo general voy a traducir a la perfección, a lo mejor posible, para traducir y elegir casos que sean pervasive, como dice Leonard Talmy, uses, pervasive uses that are idiomatic, frequent, and not stilted or far-fetched, right? Entonces, eso de no pegarse al texto no es ninguna novedad, lo ven mejor en otras asignaturas que conmigo. Yo siempre les cuento y les aclaro que yo no soy traductora de inglés, yo soy profesora y me especialicé en gramática y terminé dando gramática contrastiva y me encanta darla, pero no es mi especialidad la traducción. Entonces, todo esto que ven aquí lo tienen que tratar de transferir a las otras asignaturas. Como siempre les digo, es como la plomería, la parte de plomería de un gran edificio y que ustedes después van a completar con todo lo que es más minucioso, ¿sí? Todo lo de ingeniería, más minúsculo, más perfecto. Pero esto es muy importante, es grueso. Entonces, el no pegarme al texto tiene que ver con las tipologías de lenguas a las que yo traduzco. Conozco mi lengua. Y recuerden lo que siempre les digo, ¿cómo los ven en la ONU a ustedes y en otras organizaciones mundiales? ¿De qué tipo de traductores son? ¿Son los traductores de qué ustedes? ¿De español?
Español.
No son los traductores de inglés. Buscan traductores de español y nos llaman a nosotros a ver si se van a postular. Y ustedes a todo el mundo le dicen, yo estudio traductorado de inglés, acá se llama traductorado de inglés, pero voy a terminar traduciendo en español y necesitan conocer su lengua más que nada. Es por eso que los torturamos con los Cs, con esto, con los otros, con los gerundos, porque ustedes van a traducir al español y tienen que conocerlo a la perfección, ¿ok? Good, excellent. Well, what happens with other type of satellites that are not adverbial particles? Like clear, for example. She swam clear of the oncoming ship. So, clear, you could look it up in the dictionary and find it as an adjective. In traditional grammar, we could say that it's an adverb, that it has an adverbial function here. But if I'm wearing the blue glasses and I'm analyzing this motion event, which is the figure in she swam clear of the oncoming ship? Which is the figure in that motion event?
She.
Sí.
She. Excellent. And what type of preposition is it? Self-agentive, non-agentive, agentive?
Self-agentive.
Self-agentive, because she herself is the source of energy, if you want. Which is the verb complex?
Swam, that encodes motion and manner.
But that's not the verb complex, Antonella. That's the verb root, which is the verb
Swam clear.
Swam clear.
To swim clear.
Why? Because in this case, clear is a satellite. So in general, you expect up, out, in, into, right? Down. But sometimes you have something like clear or free here, right? She swam clear of the oncoming ship. She saw the ship coming. She was in the lake and she saw the ship coming and she swam clear. And you stop there and that's perfect. And it's very idiomatic. And it means se alejó. Y si nosotros, y esto va para María Gracia que me decía, uy, no sé si entendí bien lo que quiso decir Slovin. Si yo te digo, estaba en el lago, no sé, haciendo esquí, se cayó de los esquíes y se quedó flotando y de pronto vio que venía una lancha y se alejó a toda velocidad. ¿Vos qué entendés? ¿Que se alejó nadando o cómo la chica que se cayó al agua? ¿Cómo entienden que se alejó? Si yo digo y se alejó, ¿hace falta decir se alejó nadando a toda velocidad? Eso es mi pregunta. En español, ¿hace falta?
No hace falta.
No hace falta, no estaría mal, pero la verdad que ¿cómo se va a alejar si estaba en el agua? Y por todo este contexto no había otra forma, no hace falta decir se alejó nadando. Se alejó. Nadó lejos. Vio que venía la lancha y nadó lejos. ¿Diríamos eso? Se fue nadando, lo podemos decir, pero eso se fue nadando porque nos estamos queriendo pegar de alguna forma. Y está perfecta la traducción, porque, como dice Slovin, la descripción del entorno es suficiente para nuestra lengua. Yo ya sé que está en un lago que se acaba de caer al agua. No me hace falta explicar más nada. En inglés no queda redundante because meaning is more compacted, and so two types of semantic entities coincide in one word, swam. Perfect, no problem. Okay? And then this clear, which is not an adverbial particle, but an adverb or an adjective, if you want, used as an adverb, plays the role of a satellite, which means like a way, right? She swam clear. When they say keep clear from, es alejate, ¿no es cierto? Keep clear from, I don't know. And then the of the oncoming ship, of is a preposition which contains this ground nominal, right? So I can say she swam clear, but not she swam clear of. So this is a special kind of satellite. Another one is this very, very idiomatic expression, the coin melted free. I give an explanation in my recording, so I think I needn't repeat it. But the idea is the type of meaning expressed, compressed in this sentence is like very difficult to translate if you want to stick to the original. Otherwise, I'm sure that all of you read it and you understand. But then when you want to translate it, you find it difficult if you want to try and say something similar to this. Otherwise, say something different. Pero tengo que hacer toda una explicación en español para que se entienda, ¿sí? ¿Está claro? Okay. Well, if If there are no questions, we could go to the final exercise I assigned at the very end of the presentation. There's, did you understand, sorry, did you understand lexical doublets? Eso me falta explicar. ¿Entienden lo de lexical doublets o no? No sé dónde están los lexical doublets. Ahí está. Thank you, Sophie. Well, the name already tells us, gives us a hint. So double, two things, right? So English is very productive as regards motion, in the sense that you can add satellites to verbs that do not denote motion, or that denote only static motion. Remember that in the article, Leonard Talmy speaks about translational motion when there is a trajectory, and static motion. For example, I think he says the pen stuck to the desk or something like that, right? It's stuck to a place that is static motion. But there are some verbs that imply motion, what we call self-contained motion, self-contained, like float, but not necessarily a trajectory. So you could say that water plants float on ponds, right? They are floating, but they are static. Yes? Can you follow me? But if you say that, and there's a video that I will see if we can share the link in our virtual classroom so that you can meet Leonard Talmy in a very short video explaining his theory, and he does it with the verb float. And he spoke about a boat floated in a cave. A boat floated into a cave. Float is like a very paradigmatic verb to explain a lexical doublet, because you can speak of a plant floating on a pond or in a pond without moving, let's say, without going from one place to another. And then you can say that a boat floated in or out of a cave. And that is an instance of a lexical doublet, because, Rocio, can you read what it says here? Rocio Constance, I don't know what.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, can you read it?
Yes, lexical doublets. The previous examples illustrate colloquial expressions typical of the English typology. Notice that the verbs conflating motion and manner cause have a more basic counterpart that does not imply translational motion. By removing the satellites, we get their more basic meanings, which do not imply translational motion.
Thank you, Sophie. Go back to the previous. No, we should go back to the previous one. There. Look, for example, water. If we think of the verb to boil and water boiling, we can see motion, can't we? When water boils, it moves, but it's self-contained motion. Now, if you say something like water boil out through the crack, I have transformed the verb boil into a lexical doublet. We can say this is a case of a lexical doublet because by adding the satellite out, now the verb denotes motion, translational motion. Water boil out through the crack. But in the other example, let's move on to the next slide. If it simply says the water was boiling, there's no translation there or trajectory covered. Is that clear? Yes? The same happens with bounce, rebotar, jump. There is motion, but in one place. There's not a trajectory. There are many verbs like that in English, okay? That, for example, the verb squeeze. Do you understand? You can squeeze an orange, right? But you can say, that, for example, a very small animal, like, I don't know, a snake or something like that, can squeeze through a hole, or a mouse can squeeze through the hole, or it squeeze out of the whatever. Y es que salió, y miren todo lo que significa. O sea, uy, vi, qué sé yo, vi una rata saliendo por ese huequito, ¿sí? Qué asco, qué horrible. Vi una rata saliendo por ese huequito, o ¿por dónde sería? Por la endija, qué sé yo. Entonces, de vuelta voy a María Gracia. Yo digo, vi una rata saliendo por la endija del baño, o lo que fuera, la rejilla, lo que fuera. Yo ya me imagino que si el lugar es chiquito, es como que se tuvo que apretar para poder salir. En cambio, si yo en inglés simplemente digo, I saw a mouse squeezing out of that hole, we add more information in a way. Are you following me? And so squeeze, okay. And so squeeze is also an example of a lexical doublet in that example. Now, if I give you the example, I was squeezing oranges, or I squeezed 2 oranges, well, that's not a lexical doublet, because it's the basic meaning of squeeze. Okay? Good. Well, okay, now we can go. Finally, no, there's one more thing I haven't explained. Cause. Remember that Antonella Tarka, when she said, well, those 4 semantic entities are in red because they are compulsory. They should always be present in a motion event. Figure, motion, path, and I don't remember what else, round. And then manner and cause are co-events. So manner may or may not be denoted in the motion event, even in English, because enter doesn't have manner. I don't know if it's walking, running, flying, floating. Enter lacks manner. And then we have cause. So if I said something like, the wind blew off my hat, or my hat was blown off, or whatever, this blown off, blown, conflates motion and cause, because it's no longer on my head, because there was a cause that made it fly or blow off. Do you understand? Like, that's typical with verbs like kick. So I kicked the door open. So the cause for the door to be open is because I kicked it. So kick is not conflating motion and manner, but motion and cause. ¿Me siguen? ¿Sí? Antes, cuando teníamos más tiempo en la presencialidad.
Sorry, I have a question.
Sí, Camila. Decime.
Are there any verbs that conflate the meanings of motion, cause, and manner at the same time? The 3 meanings?
Sí, debe haber. En este momento no se me ocurre ninguno, pero hay veces que hay más de un significado en un verbo. ¿Sí? Hay algunos que incluso they conflate motion and ground. For example, it's in the article, to box apples or to bottle beer. I have to bottle beer. What's the meaning of to bottle beer? It's to put beer inside a bottle. So in bottle, there is motion, but the other meaning denoted is the ground. Where are you going to put it? In a box, in a bottle. So there you have an example. There might be cases where three semantic entities are denoted. They are not very frequent. We should be on the alert. It's not very frequent though, okay? But it could be manner, it could be ground, it could be cause, right? ¿Sí? En español también, uno puede, bueno, incluso el famoso verbo cajonear algo, no encajonar, sino cajonear. Me cajonearon el expediente, que se lo dejaron en un cajón para no seguirlo más. Well, okay, now, yes. A ver, María Teresa, mientras María Teresa me pregunta, Sofi, vayamos al último, a la oracióncita que teníamos que analizar. Sí, María Teresa.
Profe, no entiendo por qué Kik no muestra manner.
No es que
Porque,
no
por ejemplo, no
denote-
le pegué, o sea, con la mano, por ejemplo.
No, el tema es el siguiente. Que en la oración que yo te di, que ejemplifiqué, she kicked the door open, the main meaning at stake, denoted there, is the cause of why the door is open. Do you understand?
Yes.
So it's
Entonces podemos decir que es más importante el cos que el
it's
manner.
like the meaning that is really most relevant or most noticeable, right? It's where you are focusing on. Or for example, if you say, they stabbed him dead, those expressions that are so idiomatic. Someone was stabbed dead, right? They stabbed him dead. In stab, there is motion and there is cause, because you understand that he's dead because he was stabbed. Do you agree?
Yes, it's clear. Thank you.
Bueno, muy bien. En este ejemplito de sacado de Harry Potter, lo puse, es la traducción de Salamandra, para que vean, o sea, una traducción totalmente reconocida y aceptada, la simpleza, entre comillas, de la traducción al español. Let's see. A ver, alguien que no haya leído, que lea el texto en inglés. Karen, ¿puedes leer el texto en inglés?
Sí, profe. None of them noticed a large 20 owl flutter past the window. He got into his car and backed out of number 4's drive. As Mr. Dursley drove around the corner and up the road, he watched the cat in his mirror.
Ok. Well, a ver, esperen que me estoy quedando sin batería y quiero ver si enchufé o no. Sí, ahí está. Ok, good. For example, the first motion event. A flutter, an owl fluttered. Well, here it's in the infinitive because it's nobody noticed, but let's make it finite. There was an owl that fluttered past the window, right? What do you understand by fluttered past? Why is it, or what type of manner is the verb denoting, or why is it denoting manner and motion? ¿Me están escuchando? ¿Me cortó?
Sí, profe, por volar.
Ah, sí. Pensé que se había cortado. ¿Qué entienden por flutter? Juan Cruz.
Aleteando, no.
Candela, a ver, Candela.
Como volando de una forma, como moviendo mucho las plumas,
Exactamente.
las alas. Sí.
Miren todo lo que hay que explicar en español. Volando, aleteando.
Aleteando.
Haciendo ruido con las alas, ¿sí o no? ¿De qué otra manera podría volar una lechuza? Les pregunto yo, no sé. Que no sea. ¿Me van siguiendo aquí? Entonces, decir en español, traducir como, ninguno de ellos notó la gran lechuza rojiza. que pasaba aleteando por la ventana, que te hace ruido, que uno como nativo de español les pasaba aleteando, haciendo ruido, y ya decís, ¿por qué me está explicando esto? Hay algo inconsciente que nos hace ruido. ¿Me van siguiendo? Es más, yo creo que podría ser la traducción, ninguno de ellos notó la gran lechuza rojiza que pasó por la ventana. Porque de la única forma que podría pasar es volando. Ahora, si no pasara volando, sí lo tendré que aclarar. Nadie notó la lechuza que pasaba caminando por la ventana. Y eso ya, ¿cómo? ¿Por qué pasó caminando? ¿Qué? Se paró el... Y ahí sí ya tiene como un sentido. Necesitamos foreground manner, right? No dije nada de foregrounding and backgrounding manner, me acabo de dar cuenta. Lo necesitaríamos, igual como el chiste en español. Te voy a pagar, ¿qué decimos? Te voy a pagar, bueno, es re viejo lo que voy a decir, capaz que ustedes ni lo dicen, pero no importa. Te voy a pagar el día que las vacas pasen. ¿Cómo es el dicho? ¿Alguna vez escucharon ese dicho?
El día que las vacas huelen.
Las vacas huelen.
Que las vacas huelen. Pero no voy a decir el día que las vacas pasen o caminen, porque es lo lógico. Entonces I must foreground manner when it's not the expected thing in our language. Are you following me? Right?
Profe, entonces sería que se puede hacer esas descripciones como más detalladas cuando sea por caso de énfasis o que sea algo unexpected. En nuestra lengua vendría a ser en español.
Claro, sí, cuando realmente lo necesitas, te lo pide. La lengua te lo pide, ¿sí? Porque realmente si una persona entra arrastrándose o se arrastra hasta alguna parte, es algo worthy of noticing, right? Y no va a decir, explotó la bomba y fue a la puerta. No, explotó la bomba y se explota la puerta, porque ahí I really need to foreground manner.
También depende, en el caso este que son como textos narrativos, depende también del contexto del texto, ¿no?
Por supuesto, depende de un montón de cosas. Yo les estoy dando las armas y les estoy compartiendo una teoría que los puede ayudar. No tengo la ultimísima palabra de todo, ni autoridad para decirle no se te ocurra decir aletear. Pero me parece que es una teoría que está muy buena porque realmente queda claro cómo se diferencian las lenguas y cómo tiene un impacto esto de que sea verb frame o satellite frame. It gives the impression that the fact that in English you can express the path in a satellite outside the verb root leaves room for the verb to be able to denote other meanings like manner, which is not the case in Spanish or Italian or other verb frame languages. So it's, again, making you aware of your own language. It's for you to be on the alert. For our parciales and final exams, you will have to go in detail and know this and be able to make all the analysis we ask you to do. But my purpose, the purpose of including this in the syllabus, is that you are aware of this feature of your language and this feature of the English language, these different typologies that might help you deciding what to do and what not to do. And as I said, and not so that you don't feel guilty or bad or that your translation is too simple. Porque miren la traducción de Salamandra. Esto no es de un alumno, es una traducción de una editorial súper reconocida española, ¿sí? ¿Está claro? Entonces, bueno, después lo vemos como el he backed, he got into, he back out, se metió, se alejó, drove, y después daba la vuelta manejando, no. ¿Sí? Es para que empiecen a prestar atención ustedes cuando lean o cuando vean doblajes, etcétera, etcétera, prestar atención a ver si esto se respeta y como les digo, es compartirles una teoría que los puede ayudar a justificar elecciones. Okay, let's go to the last, move. The very last, there. esta. ¿Quién quiere? Karen, ¿querés leerlo, por favor?
Estábamos de campamento en una montaña. Era de noche y llovía a cántaros. De pronto, una roca pasó rodando por al lado de nuestra carpa. How would you translate the underlined sentence into English so that it reflects its typology?
Okay, have you thought of any possible answers?
A rock rolled past our tent.
Rolled past our tent. That's a good answer. It rolled past, but not it went rolling, because this use of the gerundive, rodando, gerundio en español.
Se cortó un poquito el audio.
El uso del gerundio en español, rodando, que Talmi lo llama gerundive. He also coins a new word. He coined the word satellite and the word gerundive for Spanish. The gerundive rodando, it's a resource in Spanish, but it wouldn't be natural in English to say a rock, I don't know, went past rolling. That would be a kind of Spanglish translation. Do you agree?
Profe,
Sí.
could it be rolled down?
¿Y cómo? A ver, haceme todo, porque me falta algo ahí.
A
¿Y la
rock,
carpa?
a rock rolled down beside our tent.
¿Y vos cómo lo ves a esa? Y todos los demás, a ver, la analicemos a la de María Teresa. ¿Te gusta, María Teresa, esa traducción?
No sé.
No, en serio, pensá. La anterior era como más natural en inglés. Remember, you have to resort to uses that are colloquial, frequent, pervasive, not stilted. So the one you gave is like stilted, like far-fetched. A ver, repetilo. A rock?
A rock rolled down beside our tent.
Yeah, it's like too far-fetched. Besides roll, if you say it rolled past our tent, which is the best choice, we understand that it's downwards. No sé cómo tendría que hacer la roca para rodar para arriba. Medio difícil, ¿no? En ese contexto. So that would be, I would say, the best translation. Well, okay, there are lots of exercises that I guess you have done. Then now you have to read for next week Slovin's, and I think Ask's article as well. Slovin concentrates on journeys. It's not just a single motion event, but when there's a journey with multiple stones, something like he ran out of the house, or he ran out of the room, down the stairs, onto the street, which are so interesting. And that is something, journeys and multiple milestones are connected to what Jon, not John, it's like a German name, Jon Ask calls resultative predicates, right? Or telic path predicates. Telic path predicates that are typical of English. English has this capacity of compacting two journeys in one sentence, clause compacting. So you take one verb and you can append many satellites to it. She ran out of the room, down the stairs, onto the street. How can you say that in Spanish? Salió corriendo de la habitación, bajó las escaleras, necesito otro verbo, ¿sí? Bajó las escaleras y llegó a la calle o lo que fuera. So, in English, we have something that is called clause chaining. Ya te contesto. Clause chaining in Spanish. It's a chain, una cadena of clauses with different verbs. And in English, we have this capacity of clause compacting because of the typology of the language. One motion verb and several satellites appended to it. And then you will see whether they are telic path phrases or non-telic. Es parecido a lo que veíamos de aspecto. Tiene que ver con whether the figure ends up somewhere else or whether you are describing the trajectory. So creeping along, I don't know, the corridor, yeah, that is a one-dimensional path phrase along the corridor. The corridor is the ground, or crept into the hole. The animal was outside the hole and ended up inside the hole, which is not the same as crept inside the hole, que es el ejemplo que dio Camila y que yo le hice ver que eso no tiene telicidad. Sería, no estás saliendo de un lugar para el otro, sino te estás moviendo adentro de un lugar, si dejas el inside. ¿Qué es lo que quería preguntar alguien? Vi que escribieron algo en el chat.
Me. There are two questions regarding the quizzes that I didn't understand. One of them said it's an example that is he was grabbed from behind. The correct answer is manner, but I chose motion. Why can it be motion if it?
Decime que lo anoto. Así lo analizo bien.
He was grabbed from behind.
Grabbed, double B.
Grabbed, sorry.
Grabbed, sí, from behind.
Why can't it refer to motion?
Because this is connected to the answer I gave when someone asked me, for example, why doesn't kick have manner? Why do you say it's cause? Because you have to concentrate on the meaning that is predominant, if you want. And here, since we are concentrating on motion events that imply trajectory, a ground path going from one place to another, in the case of she was grabbed from behind, right? There is more, or the meaning that is more evident is the meaning of manner. Have I answered your question?
Yes. And the last one, the example is she drank up the coffee and headed to the door. And I chose manner, and the correct answer is aspect. But
no lo sé. Bueno, eso me estaba pensando cuando les dije hasta la clase que viene, se me cruzó, me faltó una cosa. Y justo le preguntaste. Okay, great. Remember that satellites are not only adverbial particles, they can be adjectives or adverbs, as we saw these examples, the coin melted free and she swam clear and all that stuff. But at the same time, satellites and adverbial particles, the most frequent ones, do not only encode path in English. They may encode aspect. And aspect is a semantic entity, it's a type of meaning. ¿Me van siguiendo? Ahora que están re expertos, que ya vieron toda la unidad de verbos y que aspect lo tienen así, ¿qué tipo de significado es aspect? Cuando yo digo aspecto de un verbo, ¿a qué tipo de significado me estoy refiriendo? ¿Tiene que ver con el tiempo pasado, presente, futuro, que es un significado? ¿O con qué tiene que ver el aspecto?
¿Tendrá que ver con the resulting state? O sea, si es completed or not completed.
Okay, not resulting state, but that is the answer. whether you present something as completed or incomplete. Remember? Imperfective aspectual meaning, perfective aspectual meaning. It has to do with that, with the completion or ongoing situation. So, in the example Maria Gracia is giving me, Maria Gracia is my teacher. She's always examining me. Nosotros también rendimos examen con ustedes, chicos. Cada vez que tenemos clase y nos preguntan algo, ¿qué sentirían si no supiéramos nunca? A veces está bien, no siempre hay que saber la respuesta, no tiene nada de malo si uno no la sabe alguna vez, pero si el profe no la sabe casi nunca, no les gustaría o no.
I'm trying to be prepared for the exam, like with to cover everything, but everything.
I'm thankful for your questions because they are good for everybody, even for me. So, the example you have just posed, she drank up the coffee or something like that, right?
Yes.
What do you understand? Because your level of English is already very good, all of you. By, or how would you translate, rather, she drank up the coffee?
Se tomó el café.
Pero ¿por qué no she drank the coffee? Hay una diferencia entre drank up.
In that case,
Se tomó todo.
Se lo tomó todo.
Makes reference to that she drank it all.
Todo. Las mamás a los chicos le dicen eat it up. No le dicen solamente eat it. Eat it up. Ese up is an adverbial particle that works as a satellite, that is denoting a meaning of completion, aspect, right? Now, what is the difference between read the text and read on the text?
Read on means that you have to continue on reading.
Exactly. And read is read, start if you want. So please read on. This adverbial particle, this satellite, also denotes aspect, this time imperfective aspectual meaning, because it means continue, or something like, and they walk on all the night. They walk on all the, you could say they walked all the night. That's perfect. But if you say they walked all on the night, you are emphasizing this meaning of they continued walking. So that's aspect. It also happens with off, double F. In general, what type of aspectual meaning do you think it encodes? The satellite off.
Perfective.
Perfective.
Perfective. See? Bueno. Have I answered your question?
Yes, thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Bueno, chicos,
Pero
el tema es lindo el tema, ¿o no? ¿Les gusta? Hace unas caras, Juan Cruz, que no sé si le gusta o no le gusta.
Es interesante, pero está como áspero.
No, pero después les es más fácil que otros temas. Los que están recursando lo pueden confirmar. Sí, dale.
Pues quería saber, en la pregunta 9 del quiz de Semantic Entities, la misma que preguntó María Gracia, he was grabbed from behind. La respuesta correcta era manner. Yo también elegí motion, pero noté que solo estaba subrayado grabbed, no was grabbed. Entonces quería saber si de casualidad eso era como una tricky question. Si hubiese estado subrayado todo was grabbed en vez de solo grabbed. No sé.
No, porque, digamos, podría haber estado subrayado.
Está todo subrayado, was grabbed. Ahí
hubiera estado bueno. No tiene que ver con eso. Porque cuando vos analizás si los verbos, los root verbs, denote motion and manner o motion and, o lo que fuera, te concentras en el lexical verb, no en el auxiliar, ni en el tiempo verbal, ni nada de eso. Te concentras en el significado, no tiene que ver con el tiempo verbal, ni si es voz activa, ni si es voz pasiva. Algo que les quiero aclarar con lo del verb complex es que, y lo de backgrounding y foregrounding, que no dije, backgrounding and foregrounding manner, u otros tipos de significados. Whenever a verb if a verb encodes two meanings, that is to say, two meanings conflate inside that little house, the meanings are backgrounded. Están como escondiditos. Están ahí, pero no están mostrados. Están ahí adentro de la casita, ¿sí? Foregrounded, it means outside, in another element. In general, if it's in Spanish, in a gerundive, o un gerundio, o algún adverbial. Por ejemplo, yo en inglés digo, she tiptoed into the room, she tiptoed into the room, entró a la habitación. ¿Qué digo en español? Tiptoed. En puntitas de pie, o en puntas de pie. En puntas de pie es un adverbial. Manner is foregrounded there. Entró, how? On tiptoes. En puntas de pie, digo. En puntas de pie is an adverbial that foregrounds manner. But in English, it is backgrounded. She tiptoed into the room. Después, the verb complex, which consists of the verb root and the satellite. We said that the satellite exists a relationship with the verb root, blah, blah, blah. That means that even though path in English is encoded in a satellite, we say that path is backgrounded, not foregrounded. Even though it's in a different word, but that word is inside the verb complex. Sigue siendo la casita. Perdón que les hablo así, pero es para que les quede claro. ¿Sí? Inside the verb complex, backgrounded. Sí, Juan Cruz.
Perdón, tengo una duda. Ya lo dijimos recién, pero quiero ver si noté bien. Verb complex is made of a verb root and a satellite, not a
satellite. So it does not exist in English, in Spanish. It does not exist in Spanish. In Spanish, you have the verb or verb root if you want, but not verb complex, because there are no satellites. Yes. Okay, is that clear? That is foregrounding and backgrounding. In general, we speak about the foregrounding and backgrounding of manner, more than path. Pero por las dudas, si ustedes leen el artículo detenidamente, no se queden con mi grabación y la grabación de esta clase. Vayan al artículo que está resumido después de esta clase, ahora léanlo, y van a ver que son otros leyéndolo. Van a entender un montón de cosas mucho mejor, ¿sí? Entonces hay una parte donde Leonard Talmy explica esto que yo les estoy diciendo, que los satellites pueden estar, en realidad, no los satellites, que en realidad path is backgrounded in the verb complex, ¿sí? ¿Estamos? Path, aspect, el que sea. Bueno, I think that's all for today. We're done. Okay, see you next class. Bye.
Thank you.
Sophie.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, bye.
Thank you.
Sofía esta china que les hace el aguante y la vuelvo loca para atrás, para adelante, para atrás, para adelante. Así que another clap for Sofía, que estudia igual que ustedes y está acá invirtiendo su tiempo para ayudarlos. Y a mí que soy muy poco tecnólogo. Disculpen por eso. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, bye.